Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Turks and their new bonus giving their scout cavalry line +1 pierce armor. To set the stage, Turks have typically been thought of as a weak early game civilization without a Dark Age bonus, and likewise their lack of elite skirmisher and onager meant they didn't have a hard counter to archers. Adding pierce armor to their scout line on the surface seems like it might address that, but how much of a difference does it actually make, and does it replace the need for armor upgrades against ranged units? It turns out the impact of armor is hard to judge without context. To see why, imagine a ranged unit has 10 attack and your unit has 0 armor. Increasing your armor by 1 means you still take 9 damage, which isn't that big of a difference. Likewise, if you had 9 armor to start with, you would take the minimum 1 damage already, and increasing it has no effect at all, since you always take the minimum of 1. But what if you had 8 armor and can increase it by 1? In that case, the damage you take is cut in half, so what appears to be a small increase can really be a big deal. The point is, when thinking about armor, you need context about how much armor you had before, as well as how much attack you're up against. For that reason, I think the best approach is to look at some of the most common matchups through each age. We'll start with the Dark Age. Now, of course, you can't make additional scouts until Feudal, but this bonus is already helping before that. Think about how annoying it is to lose your scout to a town center. Not only do you lose a unit for free, but you also lose some potential scouting information about what your opponent is doing, so it's a big deal in a competitive game. Each arrow does 3 damage to a typical Dark Age scout, so they go down after 15 arrows. With 6 villagers garrisoned, that means they go down on the 3rd round of firing. Franks don't get their 20% more HP bonus in Dark Age, but even if they did, they'd still go down in 3 shots as long as none of those arrows miss. Contrast that with the Turks, whose extra pierce armor lets them take 23 arrows. In the same test, that would mean easily surviving 3 rounds of fire, and if they can dodge just 2 arrows, they could even survive a 4th round. You're still going to lose a scout now and then, but Turk scouts are probably twice as likely to survive a run-in with the town center than they were before. Now let's move on and take a look at the Feudal Age. Skirmishers have 2 base attack and usually fletching on top of that for 3 attack overall. In that case, scouts always take 1 damage, whether they're generic, Turk, or even Turk with armor upgrades. Basically, scouts should always do well against skirmishers in Feudal Age regardless of civilization or upgrades, and the main help would be from attack upgrades or bloodlines for more HP. Archers, though, are a completely different matter. They have 5 attack after fletching, so let's see how much the various technologies compare to the Turks bonus. Independent of armor, bloodlines in all cases should increase the number of archer shots a scout cavalry can take by around 45%. Likewise, getting the armor upgrade for a generic civilization increases their number of arrows taken by 50%. That 50% more arrows is also what simply playing Turks is going to give you passively. Now, you might think the armor upgrade has the same effect for Turks, or even that they don't need it because of their extra pierce armor. But perhaps counterintuitively, the blacksmith armor upgrade actually has an even greater effect for Turks. The Turks bonus plus armor upgrade are more than the sum of their parts, and even more than the multiplication of their parts. Rather than seeing the Turks bonus as a replacement for the armor tech and an excuse to neglect it, the way the numbers line up, the combination of the bonus with the blacksmith armor actually makes it a superpowered tech for Turks against archers, who end up doing the same 1 damage as skirmishers. A Turk scout cavalry with only the first armor tech is in fact equal or slightly better against an archer than a generic civilization's fully upgraded scout. Just let that sink in for a second. I see this working especially well in a team game situation when combined with an ally archer civ. The pairing of scouts and archers is very common in both team games and even 1 vs 1s, as archers can easily handle any counter spearmen. In that situation, I think Turk scout cavalry is really going to excel, though keep in mind they aren't any better against melee units, which I think holds them back from being completely broken. They'll also take less damage from town centers, letting you be a bit more bold about picking off villagers. Obviously, it goes without saying that scouts shouldn't be fighting under the town center for any extended period of time though. So with that, let's move on and take a look at Castle Age. Of course, Turks have the upgrade for light cavalry come in for free, which is an instant 15 HP and +2 attack. I should also mention here that Indians have the same bonus for their scout line in Castle Age, so everything I say applies to them as well. Tatars can also research silk armor for the same benefit, plus they also have 1 melee armor. With all that said, in Castle Age, elite skirmishers with bodkin arrow do 5 damage, which is a threat to the light cavalry's 2 base pierce armor. In that case, to take the minimum damage, you would need either both blacksmith upgrades as a generic civilization, or just the first armor upgrade as Turks. This case is more what you might expect, in that the Turks or Indians can just skip or delay the second armor tech, and their bonus makes up for it. Now that said, against crossbows, again, like Feudal Age, we see a really powerful stacking effect, where normally the second armor upgrade or just having the Turk or Indian bonus leads to taking 35% more arrows. When either of those civilizations get the second armor upgrade though, its effect is in fact plus 50%. The point again in Castle Age is not to feel as Turks you can skip the second armor upgrade because you're getting an extra pierce armor. Instead, the point is that maxing your armor through the blacksmith has an especially good payoff. Of course, you want the armor upgrades for their melee resistance anyway, and it's important to point out that knights have them completely dominated in melee. Anything about crossbows here can also be generalized to town centers as well, which in fact do the same damage per arrow after bodkin. That makes them as good at tanking arrows as fully upgraded knights in Castle Age, though I wouldn't say they're as well rounded as knights at raiding with lower attack and much worse performance against melee units. Rather than look at every ranged unit in Castle Age, I think it's enough to say that we should see a disproportionately large benefit from armor techs against any ranged unit that does 6 or more damage. And finally, let's take a look at the Imperial Age. Again, you get the Hussar upgrade for free, giving 15 HP and a secret 5% jump in attack rate. While their pierce armor itself doesn't change, things are slightly complicated in Imperial by the fact that the last armor upgrade gives 2 pierce armor instead of 1. To go through some common matchups against elite skirmishers with 7 attack, this time the Turks bonus isn't incredibly important. Simply getting the last armor upgrade is already enough to ensure they only take 1 damage per attack. I think it's worth noting here that in a post-Imperial trash fight, your Hussars perform the same against elite skirmishers as any other fully upgraded Hussars. Moving on to Arbalest with their 10 attack, we see the Turk bonus alone is only helping you survive 19% more arrows. In contrast, just the last armor upgrade on its own lets them take 50% more. As was the story in Feudal and Castle Age though, stacking both together is key. I hope this also highlights the importance of silk armor for Tatars, which remember is giving the same benefit plus an extra melee armor. Raiding is a major function of the Hussar as well, and against town centers, the 1 extra pierce armor gives a 50% damage negation over generic fully upgraded ones. Basically, if you're against anything doing 8 or more pierce damage, then you're going to see a benefit of 1 more pierce armor, though its increase from a percentage standpoint drops when dealing with units with especially high attack, like Janissaries. So to put it all together, I guess the takeaway for me is that a bonus for extra pierce armor isn't a replacement for armor techs. It's not even enough to think of it as just doubling the effect of the usual blacksmith armor technologies. As we've seen over and over, the effect of armor upgrades is, if anything, magnified, so by ignoring them as Turks or Indians in Castle Age, you're leaving the real value of the bonus on the table. It's the combination that leads to what at times is an arguably broken level of effectiveness against archers and a resisting town center fire. Given how recently the patch came out, I don't have enough experience playing it to have formed an opinion of whether it's too strong, but for Turks specifically, it's an interesting way to deal with their weakness to archers. In both team games and 1 vs 1, I expect to see Turks making a lot more use of the scout line as a result. But that's all for this one. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.